Hi, I'm Caden here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Conference Championship game predictions. There were 8 teams left. That got cut down to 4 last week, and here we are, 4 teams, 2 going to the Super Bowl, 1 hoisting the Lombardi. It is really starting to get intense for these teams. I mean, it's always intense in the playoffs, but now it's getting to the point where, oh man, every play, every inch truly does matter. But before we jump into those predictions, just a quick update on our head-to-head pick'em game. I have been on the comeback trail pretty much since week 1, and let me tell you, it was a long trail, but it has finally come to an end. I totally closed the gap against Callan. I got 3 of the games correct, giving me 12 points since they were worth 4 points apiece, and Callan got 0. So since they were worth 4 points apiece, his final score last week was 0. So that puts us, he had a 13-point gap, which is now eliminated. I am now down by 1 with a total of me with 206 and Callan with 207. So now this week, games will be worth 6 points apiece, so they're still multiplying, but a little bit of a hint, as you'll see in a little bit here, I don't see much change happening in our head-to-head pick'em game. So let's jump right into it, starting off with the AFC game being played Sunday at 2 o'clock Central Time with the 3-seed Kansas City Chiefs heading to Baltimore to take on the 1-seed Ravens. And we start here by agreeing we both have the Ravens in this one. Now, I was all in on the Bills beating the Chiefs. Josh Allen did all he could. The definition of hero ball, threw the cape on, did everything he could. But at the end of the day, drops and kickers were the death of Josh Allen, as they usually seem to be in the playoffs, sadly for him, because I feel like every playoff performance for Josh Allen has been so good, so elite, and he just can't pick up the wins. He can never get past the divisional round. So it is really a bummer for the Bills, but nonetheless really impressive by the Chiefs. They went against a hot team in the Bills who were on quite a streak. The Chiefs didn't look that great against Miami, in my opinion. I know it was like a 25-point game, so that sounds weird to say, but just with all the circumstances surround them, I thought that the Chiefs should have played a lot better. And they did show up, and they did play a lot better against the Bills in Buffalo. It was their first ever playoff road game with the Mahomes and Andy Reid era. So they had a lot stacked against them. So the fact that they were able to come out, play a really close game, and come out on top with a win is just impressive. But let me tell you who looked more impressive. It was the Baltimore Ravens. I think people very much slept on the Texans, and the Ravens stomped them. And you look at that and you say, well, the Texans were a 4 seed. They barely won their division, and a terrible division, yada, yada. But the Texans were a young team and a dangerous team, and the Ravens dismantled them in that second half. They were able to keep it close, but those second half adjustments just shows how well coached this is and how good of a coach Jim Harbaugh is at the end of the day, because he was able, John, correct. Get the Harbaughs mixed up every time. How well of a coach Jim Harbaugh, I said it again.
Yep.
John Harbaugh is, wow, that's just shows that I'm clearly not in it right now, but how good of a coach John Harbaugh is, because it wasn't even close in the second half. It literally looked like 2 different teams. And yeah, maybe you can say it's not good that they started off cold like that. And if they start off cold like that against the Chiefs, they might not get the chance to have a comeback. But I think that you see what worked in that second half last week and you continue it into the next week. And I don't think you have quite as slow of a start. Maybe you don't come out firing like you did in the second half, but it's not quite as slow of a start. So just like both of these games, and anybody should imagine with 4 teams this good, I think that this is going to be a very close game. But nonetheless, I do see the Ravens coming out on top.
Yep, I agree with you here. I like the Ravens in this one. The Chiefs kind of had to play a perfect game last week against the Bills, and they damn near did, with no big drops that I can remember happening by either the wide receiver corps or Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce finally broke out for 2 touchdowns. And you knew that was coming eventually, especially in the playoffs, where Mahomes and Kelce broke a Brady and Gronkowski record for the most touchdown quarterback to receiving tight end touchdowns in playoff history with 16 total now in his 6 career playoff trips.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really crazy to think about. That is not that many for 16 total.
No. And this will be now Mahomes' 6th straight AFC championship appearance. And I just don't see him beating the Ravens. They had to, like I said, they had to play a damn near perfect game to beat the Bills. It came down to a missed kick, shades of
Scott Norwood. I only
totally
knew that because you just said it.
I know, and then I blanked on it.
I'll be the first to admit it.
I totally blanked on it. Totally. It was like a test for you.
I can remember that name, but I can't remember what Harbaugh is the coach of the Ravens. That seems
But shades
typical.
of Scott Norwood because the kick went wide right for the Bills from Tyler Bass, and it was very unfortunate for the Bills that it came down to that because it probably would have went to overtime or we would have got another exciting ending, but it was kind of anticlimactic with the missed kick at the end. And because of that, the Chiefs advanced, and I think that if the Bills had been in this game, I might have picked the Bills against the Ravens.
Interesting.
If
Okay.
I will say that if the Bills had ended up winning, I think I would have picked the Bills against the Ravens here. But nonetheless, it's the Chiefs, and I think that they don't play another perfect game. I think that the drops come back, and the linebacking core for the Ravens is a lot better than the linebacking core for the oh my gosh,
the Bills?
For the Bills.
Oh
Jeez.
Man, you're really
you're
doing worse than me right now.
But for the linebacking, I was thinking because it was AJ Klein that was on him, and I kept thinking AJ Klein was on the Panthers.
Nope.
But not anymore. AJ Klein was covering Travis Kelce, and he got beat by him twice.
Yeah, that's not a good position to be in
No.
for AJ Klein.
So with the Ravens linebackers of Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, I think they're going to have a lot better chances against Travis Kelce. And I see Kelce getting shut down in this game and it being up to the Chiefs wide receivers like Rashid Rice and MVS to come and have a big game. And if they don't have a big game, I see the Ravens walking away with this one because they were able to dismantle the Texans. And like you said, they were able to make those coaching adjustments so greatly where it made such a difference in the second half. You could see where the coaching of a first-year coach against the coach of a 10-plus year veteran coach. So this will be a very interesting coaching matchup with Andy Reid and John Harbaugh because both of them are great at making adjustments. So I do see this being a very exciting game, but I see the Ravens walking away with this one in the end.
Yeah, I think the real X factor at the end of the day on this one is none other than Lamar Jackson. I mean, if you look at his past playoff performances in the past however many years, I think he was drafted in 2018, every time he's been to the playoffs, he hasn't performed that well in the playoffs. It's really been kind of his kryptonite.
I believe he has a 2-4 record.
Yeah, his kryptonite has really been the postseason play. But he did not show any of that kryptonite affecting him last week against the Texans. I mean, he had kind of a slow first half, but not really. It's more just he didn't put up a ton of points. But he absolutely came alive in the second half. So we'll see what he's able to do against a probably a little better defense, at least a little more experienced defense in the Chiefs. So now moving on to our NFC side of things, we have the NFC Championship game being played Sunday at 5:30 Central Time with the 3-seed Lions heading to San Francisco to take on the 1-seed 49ers. And we end just as we started by agreeing. We both have the 49ers in this one. We both have a 1-seed versus 1-seed matchup in the Super Bowl. I don't know what to say about the Lions. They're very hit and miss. I mean, they go against the Rams and I think they're going to lose, and they played pretty damn well against the Rams. Like you kind of said with the Chiefs having to play a perfect game, the Rams were balling. The Lions had to play a perfect game to beat the Rams, and they did, and they just barely snuck it out by 1 point. And then they go on to host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm like, well, now they beat the Rams just barely. I think they're going to come out and kind of dominate the Buccaneers. I picked the Lions by a lot in the Buccaneers game. And then the Buccaneers almost beat them. You know, they really kept them on their heels that entire game. And Baker was on fire. Well, not quite on fire, but he was definitely playing well. He was hot that whole game.
It was really good there till the end.
And then he kind of fell apart at the end a little bit. But the Lions are just very inconsistent right now to me. I don't think that they're ever truly playing bad. but I haven't seen them play really good either. They've just been kind of in this middle area, but really going back and forth on that seesaw versus mediocre versus pretty good. So, and even if you hit that pretty good side of it, you're going to have to play really damn well against the 49ers if you want a chance. I mean, last week the 49ers go against the Packers, and yeah, the Packers were the 7th seed, whatever, but the Packers were a dangerous team. They were playing really well. They were on some sort of a hot streak, to say the least, and the 49ers were able to take them out. So this one is really kind of a toss-up in my eyes. It just depends on which team shows up for these two teams, especially the Lions more than the Niners, because I think that the Niners have been more consistently playing better than the Lions have. But I mean, just depending on how that seesaw falls, and if the Lions come in hot and have an on game and the 49ers kind of regress from what they played against the Packers, have an off game, I could see this maybe falling into a Detroit Super Bowl for the first time in Detroit's history. But I think that the much more likely option is that they either sit on the same side of the seesaw, or if anything, the Niners come out and dominate because they're playing an on game and the Lions are on an off game. So we'll see. There's some factors here that can definitely change the tide, but at the end of the day, I got the Niners pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I like the Niners in this one, and really I hope the Niners win, because it's troubling for me to try to see Detroit go to a Super Bowl here, especially when it could have been Green Bay to defend against them. And I think it should have been Green Bay. We had a 7-point lead against the Niners late into the third quarter, and the 49ers was able to score 10 points in the fourth quarter, and we were not able to get our field goal by Anders Carlson, who is not good under 50.
He is not.
He's not good under 50. We should have taken a couple of delay games and made it a 50-yarder.
That might have helped. I mean, give him some time to think about it. Give him some time to get used to his more hot spot, his wheelhouse.
So, something to think about next year. But I digress. I do like the Niners in this one, and it's unfortunate that the Packers were not able to beat the Niners, because I really thought that they were on that hot streak similar to the 2010 6th seed team led by Aaron Rodgers and his breakout performance. And I thought that this was going to be Jordan Love's breakout performance. And nonetheless, it kind of still was a very successful end of the season. Compared to where we were at one point in the season, where we were looking at possibly a top 5 NFL draft pick. And now we picked number 25 overall. So we jumped 20 spots in about 10 weeks. And it was really led by great play by Jordan Love. And I really look forward to next season. And I think that the team is going to continue to grow and get stronger. And it really would be a disappointment if we were not able to make the playoffs next season.
I can't do this shit for another decade.
Oh, I know.
I can't deal with it for another decade. I swear to God, if Jordan Love is an elite quarterback, I might just have to stop watching football.
He doesn't even have to be elite. I mean, just good enough.
Well, let me tell you, he looked elite.
He did look kind of elite. He over the past 10 weeks, he ended with over 20 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, and that's including the playoff games. So that really is quite an outstanding stat. And he had similar stats to Aaron Rodgers' first season, first full season as a starter as well. So it does look very bright for Green Bay's future, which I do have that to hang my hat on. But as for this season and the rest of this season, I really hope that the Niners are able to go on and win the rest of the year. Just because I like being the team that defeats us.
Yep.
It's a team that goes on to win it all. It's a little bit of a silver lining. So I do think that the Niners will beat the Lions in this one. It's just too much for the Lions to overcome. They're going to go on the road. Now, if this was in Detroit, boy, that was quite an environment there in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
If this game was in Detroit, I might have picked the Lions here, but it's not. I think that because it's in San Francisco, it was a very nice home field advantage for them against the Packers, and I think it'll be a good home field advantage for them against the Lions as well. And as far as the Lions and not the Rams, the Lions and the oh man, who'd the Lions face?
Huh?
Who'd the Lions face?
Oh, the Bucks.
The Bucks, the Lions and Bucks game. As far as that game goes, I really thought that was a great game.
That was a good game.
I thought that Baker played really well, and the Lions just pulled away at the end. They were able to get a couple scores at the end where the Buccaneers had a couple of interceptions at the end. And you know, Baker Mayfield tried his most, he tried his hardest, and he did the best that he could. And I would really like to have seen Baker win a Super Bowl. That would have just been quite the ending for the 2023 season to have Baker be on top, but it wasn't. He wasn't able to duplicate his wild card performance where he had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this game he had not nearly as many yards and only 2 touchdowns, I believe.
2.
Yep, he had 2 touchdowns, so he wasn't able to duplicate that performance, and I think he would have needed to for him to beat the Lions because the Lions were just on way too much of a roll.
Oh, I definitely agree. You actually brought up one point that I really liked, though. I'm interested to see how home field advantage affects this game because those California teams, especially the Rams and Chargers in LA, a lot more than the Niners in San Francisco, but those California teams struggle with home field advantage because they have so many people there in California and so many different fans that aren't necessarily Niners or Rams or Chargers fans. So you kind of see a little bit more of a mixture than you would at a place like Green Bay or Detroit, where you have that more condensed population of fans where almost everyone in that area is a fan. So with the Lions being in this NFC Championship for the first time in a very long time, chance to go to their first Super Bowl as a team, I'll be interested to see how many Lions fans kind of come out of the woodworks in California, and especially how many make the trip from Detroit to California to go witness this and see if they can maybe see some history. I think that the home field advantage for the Niners might not be quite as exciting or electric as it usually is. I think the Lions might kind of take over San Francisco.
One thing that has been really annoying about it is these bandwagon Lions fans because they're so obvious. Because the Lions have been losers for 30 plus years. Nobody wanted to admit they were a Lions fan. I actually know a couple Lions fans, and they've been longtime Lions fans. I know that. So at least I respect that. But then you get some of these people who pretend to be Lions fans, and just because they're winning now, and it's really annoying because they're just in it for the glory.
Oh my God, yeah. How do you bandwagon the Lions?
Right.
Even just 2 years ago, if you'd have told me people were bandwagoning the Lions, I'd be like, you're wrong. You're lying.
No.
You're lying, future man. That's not happening.
It's just now.
Not going to happen. But yeah, you're right. It's been happening ever since the offseason. The hype that got built around Dan Campbell and when they beat you guys to knock the Packers out of the playoffs last year, ever since that moment, it seems like the number of Lions fans has just magically doubled, tripled around the world. But yeah, I don't think that's quite them coming out of the...
A lot of Hollywood Lions fans, and I wonder how many are actual Lions fans.
Yeah, I think Eminem, I know he has for a long time
from
because
Detroit,
of his Detroit
or from at least the suburbs of Detroit.
But I agree, those couple of home games, they showed a lot of celebrities that was like, you're not usually there.
Yeah.
That's not right. That's not correct. But yeah, nonetheless, these are both going to be awesome games. I am really excited for this week. I think that these are better matchups than there was last week even. There were a couple matchups last week that I think were much better, but I think game for game, even though it's 4 versus 2, these are better matchups. So very excited to see how it goes, and thank you all so much for watching this episode. Make sure to stay tuned in until next week when we do our Super Bowl predictions. Or no, that won't be next week. We will talk about the Pro Bowl next week. I almost forgot about
it skips.
I almost forgot about the most important game of the year, the flag football Pro Bowl game.
The skills challenge.
The skills challenge. So we probably will have an episode just kind of talking about that and everything in the NFL in general next week. And then the week after that will be Super Bowl. But make sure to stay tuned in nonetheless. And until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.